Hola a todos, bienvenidos, muchas gracias por acompañarnos. Vamos a ir comenzando.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for being here.
Bienvenidos al webinar Centro Ceibal.
Welcome to the webinar Centro Ceibal and Development of Citizen Development. This is part of ISEED project. The Ministry of Education and Culture will be part of this project through the International Cooperation Department. Okay, well, I'm Roberto Porzecanski. I work at Ceibal. I'm here with me, Pablo Pajes. He's also from Ceibal, and he's in charge of all the initiatives related to digital citizenship. And our plan for today is for me to give you a short introduction about Ceibal, and then Pablo will tell you a little bit more about digital citizenship. Topics I believe are the main reason for us to be here. So let me share my screen.
Comienzo contándoles un poco de Uruguay, ya que somos un país pequeño y muchas veces...
Let me tell you a little bit about Uruguay. We are a country with 3.5 million inhabitants. We are having now a new census. Our capital is the city of Montevideo. And we can say that most of the population lives in Montevideo, the capital city. And I would like to say that all education policies are managed centrally from different organizations.
Bien, tenemos un PBI per cápita alto para la región, de más de $20.000 por año per cápita.
GDP per capita is more than, we are using more than 4.5% of our GDP in education. And according to some indexes, we have the strongest democratic system in Latin America, and also the highest, that is the highest in the whole region. Let me tell you now a little bit about the context of the education system in Uruguay. 80% of the children are within the public education system, and that is governed by a body that is called the National Administration of Public Education. Now we're going to see a little bit more about that. There are almost 3,000 schools, and we reach more than 700,000 people. That includes teachers and students. We have 4 different periods: initial education, that is from 3 to 5 years, primary education, 6 to 11. And then we have lower secondary from 12 to 14 and upper secondary from 15 to 17. Most of the kids go to school for 4 hours. So within this context, let me tell you about Ceibal. Ceibal is the Center for Education Innovation with Digital Technologies of the Uruguayan government that works for education public policies. It promotes integration of technology in education. And the aim of all this is to improve learning, to promote innovation, inclusion, and personal growth processes. There are 3 main elements. It's an independent body. It depends on it's connected to the executive power, but it's part of the Ministry of Education and Culture. It's independent of the National Public Administration. It has public management and funds, but it's ruled by private law. I'm going to share a clip. Let's see if you can. Please let me know if there is something wrong with the volume of the clip.
Si querés hablar del mundo, hablar de todo el día.
If you want to talk about the world, describe your village. In a way, Ceibal is also the world. That is the amazing thing about this. Each of these places takes ownership of the tool. Sometimes it is very hard to explain what Ceibal is to someone from abroad, and to see the effects it has on a specific village, on the everyday life of people.
In 2007, in Uruguay, the government created a high technology program called Project Ceibal.
Through Ceibal and Plan Ceibal has great experience in developing the use of technologies to support students. But I think more than that, the Plan Ceibal's development started very much with the technological focus. So technology is just a support to what we can do between people.
What drew us to working with Plan Ceibal was the long-term view that they take, and for want of a better word, the joined-upness, that marrying of technology, pedagogy and hardware over a long period of time, thinking about how best to get teachers to teach these things, how best to support the teachers, what the pupils need, wrapped in a solution that gives them easy access via video conferencing to experts both within wider Uruguay or outside of Uruguay, connectivity and platforms that give them sort of e-learning. I think that's what is brilliant about what Plan Ceibal and Uruguay do, is the sum of the parts creates more than the individual bits, if that makes sense.
When it began, most people wouldn't know, but if they did know, they say, oh, that's the technology project. One computer for all students. That's about all they would know 15 years ago. Now they would say, our students are creating robotics. They're creating projects that increase the environment. They're competing in international competitions and they're winning the prizes. And there are other countries are coming, so the word of knowledge about Ceibal is now very widespread.
Para nosotros es muy alentador escuchar referentes mundiales.
It's really encouraging for us to listen to these global leaders to comment on what we do and setting Uruguay as the example. So for us, the real important thing is what happens in every village in this country.
The whole idea of boundaries and borders is what creates the other in the child's head. Education's real purpose should be to dissolve the physical boundaries, the mental boundaries. Education allows a child to understand their place in the world. I can point to a place, like, a guided tour. Oh, this is the Eiffel Tower. This is Louvre. I know it. But when you love it, you understand it with your heart. You understand the stories of the place. A school is not just about knowing the place, but it's about loving it. I think when we don't notice the children in a tiny little village, we forget who we are. The stories of all of those unnoticed places make us realize that so much can happen with so little.
There's been a competition or a tension between technology and teaching. And my impression is that we have a succinct phrase that says, pedagogy is the driver, technology is the accelerator. So we said, as long as you put pedagogy first, you will need technology. The teachers were one-way direction to students. Sit in your seats, take your notes, study this. So their pedagogy was not very complicated, but it was not very appropriate for the new technology. So Ceibal, what they set out to do was to, as they increased the use of the technology, they also developed the quality of pedagogy. They did both of those.
With technology is one of the best things to do, is to make mistakes, get it wrong, learn from that, learn from others, and then to build. And that's a change in mindset, again, which is quite scary, to be quite vulnerable in front of your class and not know all of the answers. But that's what we want them to do, is really sort of explore and discover with their children.
Learning was always said is more important than play. Stop playing and learn. And then the research came along that said students are learning narrow things. They're not learning how to work together. They're not having fun. They're not excited, all of those things. So they were missing this, and now the research on playing is very specific. If you don't do that part, they will have trouble living. When you see the videos of the students doing the creative things in this initiative, working in fish and plants and changing creation, this fantastic innovation, we've done filming or been part of that, the production of creative work coming from the students, and I think the teachers have learned from the students, is phenomenal. And we've never seen it on that scale anywhere.
So I believe the world needs more plant Ceibals. I think that the work they've done in such a small span of just 15 years has been remarkable. They've single-handedly changed the landscape of education in Uruguay with all their efforts, with their technology tools, with their publishing arm. They're doing work with their heart, not just with the mind. I think by seeing what Plan Ceibal does, I think it gives confidence to other partners in other parts who might be feeling a little challenged or might want success to say, oh, it's happening there. Even I can do that.
Bueno, muchas gracias por acompañar el video.
Well, thank you very much then. Now, if we continue with this presentation about the role of Ceibal in the Uruguayan education system, we have three organizations that work together. The Ministry of Education and Culture, that defines the national plan for education. On the right, we have ANEP. ANEP basically manages all schools, provides training to teachers, plans curriculum. And then we have Ceibal, that is an internal and external agent that ensures access to technology.
Usina de innovación.
And it's constantly innovating and helps them to develop digital skills for the population. And Pablo will tell us a little bit more about that. Three more things before I hand it over to Pablo. This is the historical evolution of Ceibal. It started as a project to provide universal access to devices and the internet. The main objective was equity. In a second stage, we wanted to make platforms available and to provide support to teachers through those platforms. A third stage was to apply technologies as accelerators of new pedagogies, what we saw in the clip. And right now, what we are doing is addressing this in a systemic way, focused on teachers and combined teaching. Ceibal has become a state policy through 5 different periods of government and with different political parties. That's one reason why it's been so successful. So we were able to invest on what was already existing. These are some figures to share with you about Ceibal's success in these last 15 years. First, it bridged the digital gap, and it has handed out more than 2,700,000 devices. Today, we have 600,000 devices that are active. In the period when we try to bridge the digital gap, it went from 30 to 90% the access to a device. During the pandemic, and as a result of all this infrastructure, Uruguay was the Latin American country with the lowest reduction of learning. It was 0.5 versus 1.3 in the rest of the continents. And when it comes to connectivity, we have 100% of schools connected to the internet with 100% of them. And we have the largest video conferencing network in Latin America. When it comes to teacher, Ceibal courses are offered to all teachers free of charge. And in all these years, we have reached more than 10,000 teachers. And with that, I finish my presentation of Ceibal. And now I hand it over to Pablo so that he can go deeper with the digital citizenship topic. Hello, good morning. Thank you very much, Roberto. First of all, let me introduce myself. I'm Pablo Pajes. I'm Chief of the Digital Citizenship and Well-being. And Roberto invited me to tell you about the department, the promotion strategy that we have for digital citizenship and well-being, as he said, together with all the other education subsystem and the public education administration. We work all together. My idea for today is to tell you a little bit about what we do and where are we planning to go in the future. I'm going to show you some relevant data, especially about the implementation of this program. I'll share my screen. Can you see my screen? Can you see it there? Okay, thank you, Daniela. Let me tell you that there was a moment in which, I think it was somewhere around 2020, we had the first document of by the Ministry of Education of a new curriculum framework where we had a reference for the first time to develop competencies for digital citizenship. Almost at the same time, Ceibal includes within its strategic plan 2021-2025 one of the strategic pillars. It includes the development of digital citizenship. A few weeks after that, Ceibal already had a new department whose mission was to work on these topics about digital citizenship. A department that already had a history within the organization, and we were working around this topic, different debates and training. So that quick reaction that we had is a special feature of the organization. We react very quickly, and we can look after the different demands within the education ecosystem. So first, we set our objectives. So we wanted to be a department within Ceibal that could lead the education system regarding this topic when it comes to updating, designing proposals and contents. All these align to the new curricular framework at national level and following Ceibal's strategy of promoting digital citizenship. We have also included a human perspective to digital citizenship, basically the relationship between people and technology. And that's why we call ourselves the Department of Digital Citizenship and Well-being, because we didn't want to lose that component about the relationship between humans and the devices. So we work within the professional teaching development department. Our pillars are to develop training courses for the initial training of teachers, and also to develop proposals in schools. Those are the three pillars of our department. So basically, to provide to the initial training of teachers, to provide to the continuous training of teachers, and that implies and involves several devices and mechanisms, taking into account the time availability of students and teachers. And all these then are translated in specific opportunities that are basically programs developing and promoting digital citizenship. This is the explanation of what I have just told you. Along the way, we have found several organizations with whom we share many things, especially when it comes to training. Something that we have is the possibility of generating training trajectories in a way that provides support on this topic of digital citizenship. Basically, we have a coordinated series of courses with programs and projects. I think that is an added value that goes cross-cutting all these aspects. The challenge is to better coordinate with other proposals within the organization, Ceibal, and also with other proposals within the national education ecosystem. That is one of the main challenges that we are facing. Because naturally, proposals related to digital citizenship are connected to computational thinking approaches, AI, or instrumental training. That is also a component, an essential and basic component for the development of digital citizenship. So that is when we realize there's an opportunity to work within the organization and with the education system. Our framework for digital citizenship starts with a working group that is very relevant, and we haven't found any other group in the region. This working group on digital citizenship is an open group originally created 4 years ago by UNESCO, the Ministry of Education and Culture, and the Agency for Electronic Government in Uruguay, ISEED. And they called different organizations connected to digital citizenship from different environments: government, education, civil society, academia, and together. And I could give you like 20 organizations that focus on different populations, and we get together and what we do, basically, we have a shared approach to digital citizenship. And our work is based on theoretical concepts by UNESCO, and then we adapt those to the local reality. This group, of course, is currently active. And in this group, we wrote the first document of national strategy for digital citizenship. This first document of the national strategy for digital citizenship, created in 2020 and it was revised for the first time in 2021, represents a shared framework for intervention of all the organizations that constitute this group. Basically, it offers a shared framework, and we know that if Ceibal works with teachers, if ISEED works with public servants, other organizations work, I don't know, with INEFOP, for instance, provides labor opportunities, and they work with workers that are unemployed. All these people receive the same framework when it comes to digital citizenship, so that then we can strengthen the relationship with those people and technologies. So thanks to this, we can have a uniform approach, and users can circulate through different training options, and they all share the same basis. And also to show you that this group is very active, we have produced several contents, and right now we are revising the strategy so that in this 2023 we can update the contents, because this changes very, very fast. So we're including new visions for the development of digital citizenship. We are including new perspectives, AI, including well-being concepts, because all these well-being concepts were not present still in 2020, and now we're including them. So summing up and to close this first part, this has to do with a local national vision. This is represented in a national strategy for digital citizenship, from which interinstitutional participation defines concepts, a vision of citizenship. It defines approaches and perspectives and how to work on these topics. And it also generates cooperation opportunities, peer-to-peer. It can be in pairs, or it can be more than one or two organizations, and they can work together. Just as a way of example, this year, together with ISEED and IBIRAPITA program, IBIRAPITA program is a program of inclusion, digital inclusion for the elderly. We have created a podcast on digital citizenship, and that is part of a shared interest that we have between these two agencies. And there are more examples of other contents that were created in this exact way. Within the conceptual framework of digital citizenship, that we have cross-cutting perspectives and use dimensions. These perspectives include all these 5 aspects: digital inclusion, asking ourselves, as Roberto mentioned, when we have these access gaps, or the different gaps that we have when it comes to the relationship with the digital world, it's not only about access gaps, but also we need to extend these to other gaps when it comes to take ownership of technology. We need to ask ourselves whether we are all included, are we all represented, and how we expressed ourselves. Those are questions that we ask ourselves, and we based our public policies on that. Cultural capital. Can the capital cultural generate opportunities so that the whole society is represented, all religions, all age groups, and we actors promoting that free participation. This is closely related to democratic culture, being able to build together a digital space that is democratic. And when we talk about this, we need to promote participation and also ownership of the digital world. There are excluded communities. We work with the Ibirapita program that is about including the elderly. We work with initial education. We work with the whole education ecosystem, but also we try to reach the whole society. Nobody can be left behind. We should include all the voices, and we need to identify the different codes of use. And then, of course, that we have to include human rights. Human rights that summarize the other previous four. It implies democracy, participation, spaces for collective and individual development within this digital world. For that, we promote the development of these dimensions of use. It has to do with the critical and reflexive use of technologies, the safe and responsible use, and also the creative and participative use. These dimensions, in a way, guide specific contents that will be later developed as policies or action plans by the different organizations. Throughout history, since the eruption of edu communication with Mario Kaplum, Freire, Buckingham, we are talking about critical thinking. It's a fundamental component, and today, in the 21st century with AI, what they all have in common is connected to the need to continue working on critical thinking. And critical thinking, when it comes to technology, has to do with the consolidation of users. Users that should be able to understand the logics operating behind platforms, networks, being aware of the terms and conditions, or how much, or the value of our data when we're constantly using digital platforms. Those kind of concepts are very relevant for the democratic exercise in the digital world. That's why it is one of the pillars to work in this dimension of the critical and reflexive use. But we also have another dimension, that is the safe and responsible use. I remember back in 2012, when we talked about digital citizenship, we were talking about safe navigation. At the time, we were talking about responsible navigation. And today, we are talking about a system of use that should be responsible, that should allow us to know about risks and opportunities, but mainly risks that we are running in this world. And there we talked about cybersecurity, use of passwords, digital identity, digital footprint. These are shared concepts that are part of what today is basic training, not only for teachers, but also for students from the very beginning, because their adults are also setting that digital footprint. and they are helping them build their digital identity, even though they may not be aware of that. Today, we have adults that work in social media from the very beginning, and sometimes they are not aware of all the traces that we leave behind. Being able to work on these aspects, of course, cybersecurity, data protection, that is also one of the most important pillars. And then another dimension that has been little by little has increased its role. It's a perspective from MIT, basically being able to the creative and participative use, using technologies for us so that we can develop our own selves, having opportunities to create and enhance skills, being able to expand our talents. So it shouldn't be only about those aspects, those more negative aspects, but also to include this other side, and also to focus on personal development and collective development. And by doing that, they will identify tools to develop their creativity, and all this through these technological tools. And that is the third pillar. We believe that digital citizenship is a concept, a wide concept, a dynamic concept that is constantly changing. Since 2020, up to date, we have included concepts. We have included the concept of inclusion and accessibility. We have also included the concept of well-being. These are dynamic concepts that challenge us to be in constant contact with this topic and the patterns of use. And then we have specific elements like Kids Online reports that define, in a way, the patterns of use and the needs of communities when it comes to the relationship and ownership of technologies. And that will generate new changes, in fact, to the vision on technologies. This could be the framework on which we develop our initiatives. We have those pillars about initial training for teachers, training of teachers already working and in service, and we have programs in different schools that promote digital culture. Digital culture is an umbrella term, and by that we focus on head teachers, students, and the whole education community. Today, we are 24 people in our department that is present all over the national territory. Roberto told you about the country that is divided into 19 jurisdictions. So we have one leader in each of the departments. There are 19, remember. And with that, we can adapt proposals. We have 6 people, and we develop all the coordinations and programs, but they have an open format, and they can be then adapted and reformulated depending on the special features of the local schools. And I think that is one of the virtues or advantages So that is our way of doing public policies. Basically, we are respectful of the local characteristics. So we like them taking into account their own problems and advantages and virtues. So we develop our ideas together with the local schools. So departments that are on the border with Brazil or departments on the border with Argentina, those right in the middle of the country, or those that are on the eastern side, all their needs are different, all their characteristics are different. So basically, we try to be respectful of their own situations. This is just a first approach to all this. Today, our Department of Digital Citizenship and Well-being, what we offer are programs, courses, progress just as Ciudadanía en el Centro, that is in high school, Aprender Todos, that is also for high schools, Digital Citizenship in the classroom, that is for the whole system. We also have gender and STEM, and in that case, we connect classroom work and it reaches students from primary and secondary education. We also implement courses in different formats, with tutors or without. And we have courses on different topics: coexistence, participation, family and community, information security, and global citizenship. But in many cases, the schools request or they want us to implement workshops. So even though for us, workshops because for us, implementing workshops is very expensive. In-person workshops is very expensive. We have made some alliances with international and national organizations that allow us to then implement all the workshops that are required nationwide. So we have proposed an agenda with different workshops. And by doing that, we also satisfy the demand that exists for workshops. And that, of course, is connected to the intervention policies of digital citizenship. Then, together with ISEED and with the working groups, we have different seminars. And we get together with students. It can be high school students or teacher training students, where we have opportunities to think and reflect about the building of digital citizenship. When it comes to contents, taking into account that in this role that we play as being national leaders, we have generated a website where teachers can access different contents produced by the department. They are all open and available to the whole teaching community. They can find video clips, access to workshop courses, learning material, conceptual material, and they can also ask for a hard copy, so we can send them hard copies so that they can use in the libraries. Also, we make available games that can be played in the classroom. We are also implementing now materials for the initial education. That is something that we would like to do in the future. And also having access to these materials in different formats, podcasts, so that we can satisfy demands by teachers that do not have the training in some of these areas. a fundamental aspect that I would like to highlight is when it comes to training of in-service teachers, we concentrate on the fact that the teacher is the one that can identify in all the materials that are presented the proposals that are better for him. So it's not about a 60-hour course, but it can be self-administered courses of 8, 10 hours. If they need assistance for the lesson plans in the classroom, we can work with him, so we can prepare different files or activities that is available for all primary and secondary teacher. Or if he or she prefers, I don't know, audiobooks, we can focus on that too, and we can offer that. So this ecosystem, in a way, creates all these needs, and then they can also share experiences, teaching experiences with their peers, so that they can inspire others or share their experiences. The fundamental strategy in this initial training for teachers is first connected to an agreement, and then we need to present proposals of good academic level and connected to their training nationwide. And it can be to all the different teaching options that they are offered. Through that, we can reach these candidates, and especially in their last 2 years of training. We saw that that strategy needed some improvement, especially when it comes to try to have an impact on the teaching practices. So in the last 2 years, so now we are also working on, basically working on the teaching practice, so that these students in the last years, they can develop projects in their own schools where they can use all the theoretical learning and put that into practice, so that they can work with the students in their classrooms, and also adding and including leaders from the community as part of the community of beneficiaries. And that has allowed us to expand the reach of proposals. Basically, working with these teacher training students and providing them with new strategies. And that is when our group that works on territory, we work with them and assist them in the putting into practice of all the theoretical knowledge. In lower high school, we also have initiatives that promote training, teacher training, but mainly they focus on the fact that students themselves should be co-designing the intervention based on the problems and opportunities that they identify in the classroom. And that takes place between teachers in that school, students, and also our staff from the department. And together they shape these plans of digital citizenship plans, and that can be implemented later in the classroom. These projects have reached thousands of students and hundreds of teachers, and up to 240 schools, and it represents one of the pillars of this intervention. And when we see these students of lower high school taking ownership of these proposals and building awareness campaigns is really very satisfactory. It's satisfying for us to see this, and we can see that the strategy is really working and is constantly expanding. To finish, this is some data from last year. We have 2,300 teachers were trained in digital citizenship. 72% of students of teacher training courses have been involved in these proposals of theoretical and practice work. When it comes to teachers of initial teaching, that is the highest numbers. 291 urban schools and rural schools have implemented these strategies. We have developed more than 500 activities promoting digital citizenship all over the country. Even though last year we had 50 schools of technical schools, it was 50 last year, but this year we reached 80 schools. And then when I told you about students leading projects, almost 700 students in 2022 were leading projects in their schools, and they were promoting digital citizenship. This year, we wanted to have some milestones when it comes to content development. And this week, last Monday, we increased the offer of content for the education system, and we presented a second season of the podcast Digital Citizenship in Movement. And there we have the experience of people from Spain, Argentina, Uruguay. Then we also launched 4 new courses for teachers. We are developing different courses on coexistence and digital violence. And that has been something new and something required or asked for by teachers. We also have a program that is called Citizenship in the Center. And just to finish, these are some pictures of these meetings, training meetings that we had on different courses. These are teacher training students that are sharing an end of the year activity. These are the leading students that lead the project in their schools. And we also organized a meeting at the end of the year last year. It's a very good opportunity to think about these processes. Many of them are coming to the capital city for the first time, and they get together and develop projects together. And then at central level, we also have developed conceptual documents of digital citizenship with the podcast I told you about and some other kind of content that we are producing. We have a series of books to work on initial education and other strategies that we're going to be implementing in the future that are connected to AI and building digital citizenship. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you got a clear picture when explaining the kind of work that we do in our department. And I'm here just in case you had some any questions. Thank you.
No se escucha.
¿Ahora me escuchan bien? Perfecto.
Can you hear me now?
Excelente. Bueno, muchas gracias, Pablo, por tu
Well, thank you very much, Pablo, for your comments. And I would also like to thank Roberto that had to leave. And I would like to apologize. Sorry for the inconvenience that we had at the beginning. We had some issues with the network connection, even though we did all the testing, believe me. Okay, we couldn't help that. So now we can have an opportunity for exchanges, comments. And please, if you want to say something, raise your hands.
Sofía. Adelante.
Sophia, you have the floor.
Hi, everyone. I hope it's okay to speak in English. Thank you very much for the presentation. It was very impressive to see what you've been doing also with Ceibal and also with the Digital Citizenship initiative. I just was wondering if you could give us some more examples of engaging. It was really nice to hear you talk about groups who might be excluded or feel marginalized. And I was wondering whether you wanted to give us some examples of your work with older people in Uruguay and what kinds of initiatives or exercises or workshops you are doing with people there. Thank you.
Gracias, Sofía. Yo entendí la pregunta. Yo te voy a contestar en español.
Thank you, Sophia, and I will answer in Spanish.
Bien. Hay una experiencia.
There is an experience that we have here.
Que este año no ha sido foco en la
This year has not been the main activity in intervention, but it's one of the offers that we have that is connected to the elderly and their relationship through these projects that are led by students in lower secondary schools.
Nice.
And what they do is they connect the IBIRAPITA program, the program I told you about for inclusion of the elderly, they connect that with the work that we carry out in the lower secondary centers. So students invite the elderly in the community and they invite them to workshops that take place in the school, and they lead those training sessions and they tell them and they teach them on how to use digital devices. That it can be a tablet with the different resources available or resources developed by IBIRAPITA program. In that process, it's very positive for both the students and the elderly. We have seen that students develop empathy with adults, and they are very, very good at communicating how to explain someone else about how to use a device. And then for the adults, we found that first, there's an increased knowledge about what is done in a high school. Okay, it changes their concept about young people and it brings them closer. And we have found a lot of similarities between these two groups than what we thought there were. So now they understand each other. It's been a proposal that was very popular 2 years ago, that is still being implemented, but it was really, really interesting. I have some clips that really show this, then I can send those to you.
That would be great.
But I think that is one of the main elements about this connection with the adults. And that happened nationwide.
Very interesting. I have more questions, but I don't want to take up too much space. I wait for my colleagues. Thank you, Pablo.
Disculpen que tengo el perro que está ladrando.
Ahora sí. Muchas gracias, Pablo. Muchas gracias, Sophie. Ahora sí seguimos escuchando más preguntas.
So now if there are any more questions, and if there are no more questions, then Sophie, you're free to continue asking, no problem.
I guess my colleagues are shy. Shall I ask a couple more? Maybe people will warm up. One more question. First of all, that was really great. Thank you very much, Pablo. It seems, and I got it also from your little clip on Ceibal. It was really interesting to hear. I can't remember the name of the speaker, but she was talking about, not only knowing, but loving what you're learning, etc. And so bringing in affect and feeling. And I thought that was very interesting to emphasize, especially when we're talking about technology and digitalization, which is considered, by many people, this kind of element of estrangement or of alienation in modern life. So I appreciate that, and your description here again with the groups coming together of different generations and talking to each other illustrates this. What you were also saying, that this is a tool for helping that, for sort of promoting the work that we anyway want to be doing as educators, or people who care about citizenship and democracy. But that's a comment, but I also was curious about the COVID era and how that affected, because for a lot of us, that became a time when, education became digitalized, and suddenly a lot of people were exposed to technologies online. And I was wondering whether, that impacted your work or has affected what you're doing or informed the future projects. Thank you.
Bien, gracias.
Well, thank you. The one that made reference in the clip is, I think, the mentor of a proposal that is called Design for Change. And Ceibal develops a program that is called Designing Change. And she is the one that stated what you mentioned. So regarding your question about COVID, I mentioned it today. One of the characteristics of Ceibal is that basically we react very quickly. That is one of the advantages. We have a team that is very, very committed to the different objectives. We can react very quickly. So during the COVID emergency in March 2020, after 2 weeks, in the third week, we were already designing together a strategy that was called Ceibal at Home. So basically, we all started thinking how to reach people in their homes, how to empower teachers that were not trained on the platforms, or they were not using those platforms. So Roberto today, he mentioned that Uruguay was one of the countries that lost the lowest levels of teaching. And that has to do with the structure, not only about technical availability of devices, and platforms that were already developed by that time, but it was also connected to that ecosystem of teachers that can reach children in their home, in their houses. There's one teacher that is called community teachers. These community teachers, they work at primary schools, and with them, we have been working. This is the 4th year that we are. So 1 year before the pandemic, we had already worked with these community teachers on how to bring digital technology tools to the students' homes for them to work with their families at home. And that became really, really relevant during the crisis. So that was also very useful for teachers and students in the most vulnerable sectors. And that's why that would be an explanation why the impact on education in Uruguay was the lowest in the region, because we already had people trained and working with students at home and their families. The teaching community also, they had been working on these platforms. The platform that we use is called CREA, that is based on Schoology, and teachers responded very, very well to start working on this platform. Today, it's very, very well integrated. Everybody uses that when planning, when correcting. And in a way, so, and then after the pandemic, platforms continued in use. And this happened not only at the national level. Immediately after the pandemic, people disconnected. It was like, let's go back to in-person courses. Those in-person courses that we were missing so much. And then little by little, those same teachers and their relationship with technology, they started enriching their own teaching proposals with technology elements. And then little by little, we started increasing the level of use of those tools. We haven't reached the same levels as during the pandemic, and we understand there was a need to be physically in person with students and colleagues also. So then we have a proposal that is Ceibal at home. So there were many, many different proposals. I mean, projects for science. There even was a TV program that was implemented in order to reach people at home. And that was it. We reacted very, very quickly. Results were very good. And then post-pandemic, there were some marks on teachers and students that are challenges that we need to face. And it also has to do with digital citizenship. So how we work together in these digital spaces, how we can work together. So those are the challenges that we are facing after the pandemic, and we need to reformulate ourselves and how we think about education in the future, and how all these digital aspects, what kind of role they play, so that we can enhance the learning opportunities of students.
Thank you, Pablo.
Sí, muchas gracias, Pablo. Bueno, seguimos.
Thank you very much, Pablo, for that. If you have any other questions, let us know. Questions, comments, don't be shy.
Yeah, I feel like a teacher who should encourage everyone to, turn on their camera and like we can see each other a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. Overstep my boundary. But yeah, I know, I mean, Magda is here, for example. I know they have done work with science clubs in Uruguay, and I was wondering, I mean, you know, I was wondering the connection between science clubs and Ceibal and like the interplays, but maybe they can they can join us.
I would love to comment something, but I unfortunately was informed too late about the translation, and my Spanish, and it was just like 15 minutes ago.
Oh,
so
no.
I missed a lot of the talk. Sorry for that. I'm not so familiar with new features of Zoom, unfortunately. But when we were discussing the science clubs with the participants of science clubs, when being in Uruguay, Ceibal actually came up quite often in this discussion, that they provided tools for them to develop their ideas. Not only laptops, but I believe also these chips and technology that they can build out of it.
Yeah, there was a mention of robotics and all these other applications, right?
So the kids seem to be very appreciative of Ceibal.
Is there a dimension of like science literacy within this kind of digital citizenship program, Pablo? Does science kind of come into it or not really?
Ay, perdón que ahí no entendí la pregunta, perdón, pido disculpas.
Sorry, I didn't get the question. Can you repeat that?
Yeah, the question was, does science literacy come into digital citizenship and, you know, the kind of digital literacy dimension, or, you know, because are they separate projects in a way? Is there a kind of synergy there?
Sí, hay un área, son áreas distintas dentro de
Yeah, there are different areas within the organization. We have one specific area for the promotion of STEM. We also have a manager of science and technology, and then we have another manager for teacher training development. We have agreements and we have some shared aspects, but we work as different components. The STEM area develops different projects of digital laboratories, robotics, Olympics, programming and video games, and also computational thinking. And in our section of teacher training development, we develop all the ecosystem for constant and permanent training of teachers and all those new pedagogies associated to this process. And we also work for training of teachers along these lines developed by the STEM lines. But when it comes to programs, we are different departments. We have something in common, that is gender. So gender issues from digital citizenship, we deal with the gender gaps. We also have this proposal I told you about, gender and STEM. And from the computational thinking area, we also coordinate with the promotion of gender equity in those proposals related to STEM and technology. So basically, we try to analyze pedagogical proposals, because the first bias can be found sometimes in the proposals and how the proposals are formulated in our working with the students and how to include participatory initiatives. So in those areas, when it comes to gender and ICTs, we found an opportunity and we share the same concerns with the area of science and technology. Thank you very much, Pablo, for your answers and for telling us about all these in such detail. Great. That was great. Let's see if we have any further questions, or feel free to use the chat. I can read those out, no problem. If there are no further questions, then we can close and we can finish this meeting. And then if you have any further questions or comments, feel free to send those to us, and we can send them further questions or comments and send them to Roberto or Pablo, okay? Okay, perfect. I'm at your disposal. Thank you very much for your interest and your questions, and we are in touch.
Thank
I
you.
can send you, I will include my email address here in the chat. Well, thank you very much for attending. Thank you. I would like to thank the speakers for the presentations, and I apologize once again because of the inconvenience we had at the beginning. Thank you for your time, and we're in contact. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.